In War and Warriors, Zarathustra exhorts readers to actively strive for conflict, to seek it out, the right kind of conflict, fitted to your growth. Let's go through the 3 main sections I've divided this into. By our best enemies we do not want to be spared, nor by those either whom we love from the very heart. So let me tell you the truth, my brethren in war. I love you from the very heart. I am and was ever your counterpart, and I am also your best enemy. So let me tell you the truth. If you'll allow me the liberty, let me take your mind back to 2010. One of the greatest movies of all time released that year. Remember this guy? Megamind gives us the perfect caricature of the idea Nietzsche's getting at here. He spends his entire life locked in an epic duel with Metro Man. Their rivalry gives him purpose, focus, and a reason to wake up at all. It is a kid's movie, ultimately, so they do kind of take an idea and really run with it, stretch it to the nth degree. I mean, Megamind goes to sleep and wakes up in the morning fantasizing about Metro Man, this strong, muscly, glistening Olympian.
Hey, Metro.
He claims he's his enemy, but with fantasies like that, who knows? But this is exactly the point. Metro Man is not just his enemy, he's his counterpart. He's the axis around which Megamind's existence turns. And then one fine day, Megamind wins, Metro Man is defeated. And what happens? Celebrations last around 4 seconds. He collapses into aimlessness, depression, and all-round meaninglessness. The so-called enemy was actually the entire source of his vitality. Without him, does Metro Man really exist at all? In The Will to Power, section 625, Nietzsche writes, "The concept truth is nonsensical. The entire domain of true-false applies only to relations, not to an in itself. There is no essence in itself. It is only relations that constitute an essence." There's a lot to say here, and philosophers, including these 2 superstars, have been debating this and topics like this to do with innate human nature for centuries now. But the point at fundament is quite simple. We can't posit a Megamind in himself, if you will, because the quality of Megamindness is birthed purely out of the fact of the existence of Metro Man. Said more widely or generally, resistance or pressure makes life overcome itself. Zarathustra encourages us to welcome with wide open arms the challenges that the adversary may bring, but just know that at bottom they're simply playing a role and nothing else. Ye shall only have enemies to be hated, but not enemies to be despised. Ye must be proud of your enemies. Then the successes of your enemies are also your successes. Now, I want to add some layers and nuance to what I touched on in the first part. Nietzsche often has enough subtlety in his message where you read something to the end and think, well, that's just not where I thought that was going at all. In War and Warriors, he's clear in delineating the importance of not engaging in senseless battles. Ye shall be those whose eyes ever seek for an enemy. Just when you think he's advocating war at all costs, this is what the next line reads. For your enemy. Conflict for conflict's sake is spiritually and developmentally null and void. It's the ultimate sign of decline. The problem with mass movements is that the enemy is generic. We are fighting for our fatherland, or so we think. They are fighting for theirs, or so they think. But we're really just pawns in a wider geopolitical chess game, or so I think. Our antagonists slowly become so abstract that they're no longer our mirror image. I see many soldiers, could I but see many warriors? Uniform, one calleth what they wear. May it not be uniform what they therewith hide. This trick is also played by Marcus Aurelius a couple times, which I really love. Happiness is possible even in a palace. Now, a lot of you wannabe Ubermenschers will be familiar with this already, but this idea of choosing your enemies wisely, or at least being in an appropriate relationship with them or it, is something that Carl Jung touches upon frequently in his works, with his idea of shadow integration as being a key part of your development. Now, depending on which corner of the internet some of you are loitering at, you will be familiar with this guy. That's right, our friendly neighborhood John Vervaeke. He talks about opponent processing versus adversarial processing. In a state of healthy process, you and the other sharpen each other and remedy each other's blind spots. In adversarial processing, a more nefarious spirit inhabits you, in which, as he calls it, fittedness is lacking and you enter a relationship of mutually assured destruction. In more evolutionary terms, your enemy is your ecosystem. Think of the way wolves and deer are locked in a lifelong dance. In Yellowstone Park, when wolves started being hunted to extinction by humans, deer almost immediately started doing worse, not better. Without the wolves around to keep them sharp, deer became weaker and more disease-prone. Weaker genes started breeding. They also overgrazed the land and threw the natural balance in Yellowstone out of whack. When wolves were reintroduced, balance returned. If you're the deer, your enemy is the wolf, and life is the ecosystem. You're all regulating and shaping one another to new heights. Side note, there are caveats and prerequisites to this. This line of thinking can be hijacked. Also, sometimes pressure doesn't create strength, sometimes you just die. There's a move that Nietzsche makes throughout his works that avid studiers of his will be well acquainted with already. Essentially, he takes something that is classically known to be the cause and flips it and says that it is in fact only just the symptom. In Twilight of the Idols, it reads, "Incidentally, pessimism, however infectious it may be, does not increase the morbidness of an age or of a whole species. It is rather the expression of that morbidness. One falls a victim to it the same way one falls a victim to the cholera. One must already be predisposed to the disease. Pessimism in itself does not increase the number of the world's decadents by a single unit. Let me remind you of the statistical fact that in those years in which cholera rages, the total number of deaths does not exceed that of other years." Go back and reread that, by the way. Replace the word cholera with corona and you might have something. But how it pertains to the text at hand, "Ye say it is the good cause which halloweth even war. I say unto you, it is the good war which halloweth every cause." So you can justify your war saying that we're fighting for this or that cause, but that's not what dignifies the war, according to Nietzsche. What dignifies the war is how much you struggle for it. That's the key part, is what will be sublimated, not the overarching end goal you think you're fighting for. So, how does this relate to the here and now? What causes this channel to grow isn't you liking and subscribing, although that would be nice. Ultimately, that's just the symptom. The sickly predisposition that brought you to a philosophy video in the first place is the real cause.